Hi everybody, I hope you're doing well. I want to do a video today on the difference between passive and active gains and why it's important to your divorce. And let me just tell you very briefly where it comes into play, okay? Because a lot of people struggle with this concept, but it's really critical to understand. If you have, for example, a stock account, what's going to happen is you're gonna file for divorce on a certain date, but you're not going to actually get divorced for a long period of time after that, sometimes a year, sometimes even 2 years. And during that time, the value of that account is going to fluctuate. And the question is always, well, wait a minute, how do we determine who gets what? Because what the general rule is when you file for divorce, the date that you file the complaint is what is controlling for the purposes of equitable distribution. In other words, the date you file the complaint, you kind of take a snapshot of the assets, and what assets you have, that's what gets divided up. And so if you add more assets after that, well, that's considered really post-marital, okay? But the problem you're going to have is that your stock account, for example, and there are other examples of other assets, but this is where the issue comes up most commonly. Your stock account is going to fluctuate in value. And it might be, just to use easy numbers, that on the date you file for divorce, your jointly held marital stock account has, for example, $100,000 in it. And then 2 years later, it's got $130,000 in it. Then the question becomes, well, wait a minute. I thought when we filed for divorce, that's when we take the snapshot. What about this other $30,000? Who gets the benefit of that? And the answer is, it depends. It's not as simple as always just dividing it up. If it is a passive gain or a passive loss, it gets divided up. If it's an active gain or an active loss, then we have to decide how was it actually active or not. And here's what I mean. A passive gain or loss is when the money is just sitting there. Okay, so you've got $100,000 in your brokerage account. Nobody really touches it. By just sheer force of the market, it goes up or down. Okay, well, when it goes from 100 to whatever, 130, then you guys will both evenly divide the extra $15,000. That's no problem, okay? When it goes from 100 to 70, you guys both bear the loss of that extra $30,000. And so you both get correspondingly $15,000 less. But let's say in that same account, one of the parties is actively day trading. And because they're day trading, the day trading causes the value of the account to go up. Well, the person who's doing that is going to argue that the account went up because of what they were doing, okay, and therefore they should be entitled to a greater share of it, all right? But the opposite is true also, that if by virtue of day trading they're losing money, okay, especially against what the market, especially against market performance, well, then the other argument is going to be they should be solely responsible for that loss. And it's a lot more complicated than you think, because a lot of times you'll see these cases where someone's not really day trading. I had a situation one time where there was an account had like $1 million in it, and I represented the husband, and the wife was saying, well, yes, it had $1 million in it. The market went up 15%, so it should have been 1.15 million. But because I quote unquote day traded, it went up to 1.2 million. Well, her idea of day trading was that she had gone one time to her broker and they switched investment strategies. Well, is that really active trading or not? And I think it's kind of a tougher argument when it's just one thing. And the other argument is, well, wait a minute, this was a jointly held marital asset. Okay, you didn't have the right to go do this without me. I basically tacitly agreed to letting you do this. Therefore, I should bear in the active gain as well. And so what necessarily constitutes an active gain versus a passive gain is really something that has to be decided on a case-by-case basis. Going to a broker one time is probably not it. If you're day trading, that's closer to being very active. If you're doing it once a month, once a week, again, these are all kind of judgment calls. And keep in mind also, very few day traders actually wind up exceeding the gains of the S&P 500. So it's quite possible that by day trading, you're causing the account to grow, but you're also causing it to grow by less than what it would have grown if the money was just passively invested in the stock market or passively invested in whatever passive investment you previously had coming into the marriage. Where this gets even more complicated is if you're talking not so much about stock, but about the value of a business, because the business is going to have a value that's ascertainable or close to it anyway, on the date of the filing of the divorce complaint. but then the value of that business is probably going to change over the next year or two. And the question is, well, who's contributing what to that business? And again, that's going to be very, very fact sensitive. All right. If it's something that's run just by the husband, for example, well, then he's going to get the benefit of it. And the detriment also. If it's something where they're both jointly running, you're going to have to kind of factor in a lot of different things, what they're really contributing to it and how. And honestly, there's sort of this weird rule in family law, and it's kind of unwritten, but the more complicated things get, the more judges like to just go with simple answers, which is to say, a lot of times it's just easiest to divide things 50-50. So anyway, there's certain things in divorce that you can do by yourself. If you have a very simple marriage, you maybe don't even need a lawyer's advice that much. If you're talking about you had a 1-year marriage, no assets, no child support, no kids, no children, no spousal support, no real debts, you pay a lawyer a few bucks and you get it done right. But if you're at the point where you have assets that necessitate this sort of analysis, where you have concerns about whether certain gains are passive or active, if you're talking about a brokerage account, or especially if you're talking about business valuation, this is definitely beyond the scope of something that you can do yourself, and you're really going to need to hire an attorney. And on top of that, you're probably going to also have to hire expert witnesses if you're going to want to testify, want testimony as to what the value was and what the value should be today and what it is today. So that's a really complicated area of the law. I'm almost reluctant even to put this video out because I don't want people thinking that this is the kind of thing you can watch the video and you understand it and now do it yourself. But I'm hopeful at least it gives you an idea of how complex it is, and how, if this is the kind of situation that you're facing, then this is definitely the sort of divorce, where you definitely need a lawyer. All right. If that's the case, go ahead and give me a call. I'm always happy to do a 15-minute or so free consultation to talk about the situation that you're facing and what you can reasonably expect going forward. I also encourage you to check out the other videos on this playlist, especially a general overview, which gives you a good idea of the divorce process in general. And like I said, give me a call if you need anything. I'll see what I can do to help you. All right, guys, good luck. Take care.